you guys. This is going to be the first meeting that's recording, so it's always cool to let people know that we will be recording this presentation, so that we've also put together a YouTube channel for this meeting for the Americas group, and we're going to upload it to that once we're done and we've got it all looking pretty. So this point forward, we'll start recording presentations and uploading that, and then start having more information up there so you guys can go there too. And for the people overseas or people that can't make it or have to drop off, because we're dealing with the different time zones here in the US and around the world, it's difficult for everybody to see it. So at least we can start helping people reach those people. So I think that's good news. Let's see. Let's ask the man of the hour. Are you ready to go there, Tangle Accountant?
Oh yeah, and you can call me Andrew too.
Okay, well, I didn't know if you wanted to be outed, so there you go.
I mean, if you go to my Twitter account, you can literally click on my website and you will see who I am.
Well, that's true, but I just, I needed you to come forward and say you wanted to do it. So, okay, Andrew, you're good.
Yeah.
All right. So,
yeah. And since we got like Merlot on here, or at least he was here before, I want to tell you that I was super close to buying a good chunk of your collection on Ethereum, all your NFTs the other day. I couldn't pull the trigger. I think I'm going to wait for you to launch those on Iota, and then that's where I'm going to buy all your collection. Then it's going to be worth like $1 bajillion someday.
That's awesome.
Yeah. If I had some like definitive proof that you would be able to transfer NFTs from Ethereum to Iota, I'd probably buy them right now, just so I could.
All right, let's broker the deal right now. Let's close it.
Yeah, and instead I ended up buying
that, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see how the EVM is going to work, and then like with those NFTs, I'm really looking forward to being able to bring them over to Iota, because that's where I really want to be setting up base. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, they're incredible. My wife and I were staring at them like we were going through your Instagram, and just like they're mesmerizing. They're incredible.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that. Yeah, I can't wait to show you what's coming for the Iota ones as well, because definitely been putting a bit of time into it.
Well, you know what? In our next meeting, we'll have you show them off. Well, I'll give you a little segment. You can show them off. That'd be cool. That's
definitely. I've got one animated and rendered ready to go for it. So, well, actually two. So yeah, I'll be keen to do that.
All right. Okay. So, awesome. Daver, are you ready to go? Okay. All right.
Yeah. Should I start sharing my screen right now? I was just gonna kind of talk about DeFi for the first part, and then jump into the actual DApps later.
Why don't you put up one screen and then start talking, and you don't have to do anything with the screen?
Yeah, so you can all look at each other.
Yeah, I can't stand looking at myself.
Whoa. All right. Yeah. Heard of you? Yeah. Good people. Oh yeah. This is my buddy Josh. I got him into the Iota sphere. Josh D. If anybody's looking to do, any type of community outreach, if you want someone to set up meetings, if you just want someone to get involved in your project, reach out to this guy right here, Josh D. Like, he's looking to get involved.
Cool, Josh. Hit me up later, and or with Tangle Account, just hit G-Man up, and we'll certainly figure that in. Cool.
Yeah, this guy's looking to work. All right. Yep. So to start out, let me tell you about my day today. I bought a fractionalized share of a Doge NFT. I spent a bit of money on it. I don't know how I feel about that, but that's what I did today inside the crypto sphere. And now that I've lost a little bit of your credibility, I'd like to build it back up before I talk about DeFi and tell you about my background. So, my name's Andrew Warden. I live in Michigan, inside of the United States. I'm up there in Traverse City, and I graduated with my master's degree in finance from Michigan State University in 2014. And since then, I have worked as an accountant for a few international entities, like subsidiaries, for the company I've worked for pretty much ever since I graduated college. I was the accountant for our Canadian entity to start out, And then, oh, one sec, our TV just turned on.
That's awesome.
That was super weird. Our smart TV just turned on for no reason. All right, yeah, so accountant, that's what I started out doing in my life. And I was accountant for our Canadian subsidiary. I took on the UK and also Germany. So if anybody lives in those jurisdictions, if you've heard about Haggerty or in Germany, Classic Car Analytics, that's our company and I was the accountant for it. And then as we grew bigger and bigger, I took on a role of financial reporting analyst. So for the entire corporation, I took care of all the reporting and whatnot for it. And through a series of promotions, I am now the financial systems administrator for the entire corporation. And so basically what that means is that I'm in charge of all the data and reporting inside of our enterprise resource planning software. And so, you know, I maintain the current system and architect new expansion opportunities. So that's kind of what I do for my day-to-day. But outside of it, I focus a lot on crypto and finance in general, actually. So I've been obsessed with the art of managing money since I've been a kid. And a little anecdote is that I actually had to use my older brother's social security number and bank account to open my first brokerage account because I was actually too young to buy stock. And if that's not enough, I even built an entire website, and with no ads, by the way, where I just write about finance just for fun. So like that's how I get my kicks. Like it's just all about finance in my life. I truly enjoy it. And so like now that I've established myself as a truly insane finance fanatic, let me tell you that because of DeFi, I've never been more excited about finance. DeFi like absolutely changed the game. Everything I thought I knew got thrown out the window, and I've spent like the past several months re-engineering how I thought about yield, how yield is actually created, and how I can personally capture it. And so what I'm looking to do is, you know, hopefully apply some of these concepts that have happened inside of Ethereum to the Iota community and share them in real time. So I'll tell you that, you know, a little bit later in the conversation how I'm looking to establish something called the Iota DeFi Academy. And basically anybody in the Iota community can go to this website and access easy tutorials. So as DeFi apps show up on Iota, you can just go to this like, you know, one-stop shop and check out easy tutorials. Be like, oh, how do I actually use this system? And it will show you how to use it. And then there's like a bunch of other things you can do on it. But I don't want to own this. I have the current website for it, and I'll build it out. But then we can create a DAO for it. Basically, anybody who owns tokens in that DAO can be a content creator and be rewarded with more tokens. So everybody from the community can be rewarded for creating this Iota DeFi Academy. But I'm sure like what you are looking for here is kind of like, what is DeFi? Before I go into that, does anybody have any questions?
I'll just make one quick comment. You know, there's different ways that we can manage that whole thing for the DAO and funding it and do that. And I've talked with Andrew about this. So the way that that happens obviously is going to be based upon what, if and when a DAO is decided, which we hope it will be. And then, you know, there's different ways that the DAO will envision funding projects. So, you know, the way that that would be funded, but it's an awesome idea. I think the community probably would gladly support it. So just want to get that out there.
Yeah, and I
from
should
my
note
side,
that
I can really say that IF will definitely also support you in, if you really plan to do stuff like this, get in contact with me, because we are really looking for people like you that aim to create knowledge and platforms for educating the community. IF is really into supporting things like this.
yeah, like that would be super cool. And I should just like mention to everyone out there who's looking to get involved in possibly in content creation, this is like, as far as my idea, completely separate from the Treasury DAO. Because I mean, I
Right.
follow a guy called Cooper Turley, I believe his name is. And this guy's a part of 90 DAOs inside the Ethereum ecosystem. Like a DAO is just a type of LLC where as you create more and you contribute more, you receive more equity inside of that organization. So basically, we will create some type of Iota DeFi Academy DAO, and the more you contribute to it, the more equity stake you will gain in it. And I'm willing to create the initial website, create all the first podcasts, create all the first tutorials and stuff like that, and then give up all of the ownership to the DAO and trust that hopefully I'm rewarded with some type of DAO token for my previous work. But if not, that's not the end of the world, because I would like to take hold of it.
This vision is kind of like everything that I'm excited about. This is this is the epitome of what can be done with a DAO. So I'm glad that the community is hearing this, and then they can take these concepts and say, you know what, there's a lot of different things we can do, a lot of different ways we can all earn income or return, and also give back to the DAO, so that hopefully we have an evergreen treasury, so that, you know, as we hand out money, we're filling the till back up. So love the idea.
Yeah, there's a million ways to do this. It's just the coolest thing. So I just wanted to throw that concept out there before I start talking about DeFi, because what's going to happen is that the system is going to explode. There's going to be a bajillion dApps on top of Iota. And what we're going to need to do is, you know, make it easy for people to interact with these dApps. So that's what we're looking to do. But, you know, to transition, what is DeFi? DeFi is short for decentralized finance. Finance is just how you manage money, and we all know what decentralization is. But when I think of DeFi, I think of it as this all-encompassing term for the tools used to manage your money on the blockchain, or in this case, the Tangle. The tools, in this case, are actually dApps. Each one provides a different function. One is a savings account. The other is fixed income. You got insurance, cool things like options and futures, and then innovations like synthetic assets. The list goes on and on. Basically, the days of cryptocurrencies only function being sent from point A to point B are over. Like, you can do some super cool shit with digital assets now. But before I get into that discussion, I want to talk about yield, because that's like the first thing that I hear from anybody. Like, the yields in DeFi are crazy, and everybody asks where they come from and if they're even real. Like, yes, they're real. And I would say that yield comes from three primary sources. Number one, demand for leverage. Number two, native tokens. And number three, which I would consider the most obvious, is protocol activity. So let's just jump back to the first one, demand for leverage. Of course, there's going to be demand for leverage if something like with an asset class that's been annualized going up 300% over the past 12 years. Like, there's nothing new about leverage. If there's that asset class that exists, people will want to lever themselves in order to get more exposure to it. Here's the thing. In order to take out leverage, someone needs to provide collateral. And those providers need to pay interest. Just boom, yield. All right, so that's your first way to generate yield inside of a DeFi ecosystem. Number two, native tokens. And this one's unique to DeFi. An example would be, there's a protocol on Ethereum called Compound. It's a lending and borrowing protocol. And so what would happen is that you supply tokens to the Compound protocol, and not only do you earn interest, but you earn comp governance tokens as well. Those governance tokens are worth something, and they add to your yield. So in the specific instance, say you provide, a certain amount of USD to the Compound protocol, and they're going to give you a 4% interest rate on your USD. To say, $1,000, you get $40 a year. But on top of that, they will give you comp governance tokens that say are an additional 2%. So you get a total of 6%, even though only 2% are governance tokens. And then, you hear a lot of the times oh, governance tokens, all you do is vote, they're not worth anything. I would argue that the same thing happens for any tech company that IPOs. They're not paying a dividend right now. All you have is essentially voting rights until they pay a dividend. And what you can do if you have a governance token, which this has happened before, is that you can vote for a portion of the protocol revenue to go back to the token holders. I mean, this happens in SushiSwap and Bancor and stuff like that, where the more the protocol gets used, all those fees go back to the token holders. That's essentially a dividend. So those governance tokens are worth something. They're willing to give you those on top of your interest payments whenever you use a protocol. Therefore, that's additional yield because those governance tokens are worth something. And then the third way of generating yield, and what I would definitely consider the most obvious, is protocol activity. Like I just mentioned, SushiSwap and Bancor and Synthetics, Perpetual Protocol, there's a bunch of them out there. And all the like, they pay a portion of the fees generated by the protocol back to whoever is holding the native token. It's essentially owning equity. Very sustainable way of generating yield, and that's another way to do it. But you gotta ask yourself, like, how does this whole DeFi thing start? Like, how did Ethereum create this system that allowed them to do all this stuff? Like, how can I put in $1,000 and end up with $2,000, 6 months later by just interacting with these protocols? First things first, you need smart contracts. After that, like, human ingenuity takes over. Like, if-then statements are so, like, goddamn powerful. Like, it's crazy. I actually wrote a post on the Iota Discord a while ago about how DeFi started on Ethereum and how I believe Iota will follow a similar trajectory. And if we're being real with ourselves, like, what can we actually do with our Iota tokens besides send them from one account to another? There's something like, I think as of today, like $4 billion in Iota tokens waiting to be used. The same exact thing happened to Ethereum. People had a bunch of ETH sitting in their wallets and they wanted to use it. Someone came up with Twitter on Ethereum. Like, everything would be live on the network and it would cost like 0.00001 ETH to send a tweet. So you have 1,000 ETH, you send one tweet, and you still have 999.999 ETH left. This was no good because people want to utilize their full balance. The exact same thing is true with Iota. We're no different. If I have 100 gigs, I want to be able to use 100 gigs. And in the Ethereum story, that's when Maker showed up. MakerDAO. Maker is a DApp that allows you to mint a stablecoin called DAI. That's pegged to USD. It did this with various algorithms, but the main point was that you deposited, let's say, $10,000 worth of ETH, and you were able to withdraw $5,000 in DAI without ever losing your ETH. You just deposited it there. They were going to hold it for you, and until you pay back that $5,000, they'll give you $5,000, which is just like insane because this is all permissionless. Effectively morphing your buying power from $10,000 to $15,000. Nobody's permission. And I don't know about like everybody else in here, but that absolutely blew my mind. Is that you could turn 10 grand to 15 grand without anybody's permission. So basically, the more ETH you had, the more power you had. You could turn around and use that DAI to buy things. It's like the Cambrian explosion that everybody talks about. It's real. The thing is, I can tell you exactly when that Cambrian explosion will start. It starts the exact moment someone releases an app that allows you to utilize your entire Iota balance. Like that's like plain and simple. That's exactly what happened with Ethereum. As soon as, like, because right now you can't do anything with your Iota balances. As soon as someone releases a DApp that you can actually utilize your Iota balance, Cambrian explosion starts. Because that allows apps to be built on top of that. That's where composability, you'll hear that word a lot when it comes to DeFi. You can start stacking protocols on top of each other. Current proprietary systems like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, I want to check out their software that they use in order to manage their money. Like, good luck. Like, you can't do that. But with DeFi protocols, they're out there. I can literally grab like Maker's protocol, stack it on top of Compound, and create a new protocol. Yeah, it gets slightly riskier every time you stack on something on top of each other, but it's out there. And you can create like these insane financial primitives. So like you got the Maker protocol out there, you can use DAI, you can lever yourself. What happens after that? You can finally utilize your full balance. You could take your guess, but if I was to make a prediction, what may happen after is something like a decentralized exchange appears. Now people with Iota can trade with people who minted stablecoins. So like now the people who minted stablecoins to get more leverage can like lever themselves again, and the people who trade their Iota for stablecoins can effectively exit volatility. This is all without sending their coins to a centralized exchange, all without anybody's permission. And then after that, you probably see like a lending and borrowing protocol. The person who sold their IOTAs for a stablecoin in order to exit volatility now would like to at least earn some modest interest. That person lends the platform their stablecoin in return for interest payments until they withdraw. And like I said, you'll probably get a native token too if you're in early enough, which we all will be. And if you remember from the beginning, someone who always is willing, like someone's always willing to borrow money to lever themselves up. Or, you know, who knows, maybe someone is really bullish on IOTA long term and wants to remain exposed to the price appreciation, but sees an opportunity in the space to make some protocol revenue. So they deposit their IOTA as collateral, take out a loan in a stable coin, swap that stable coin for the new protocol, and begin earning money using that protocol without ever selling their IOTA. Like no taxable event happened and they're exposed to the price appreciation of IOTA.
I love this concept right there. This is what I'm after. The non-taxable event to do this is huge in my mind.
Yeah, great. Like if you get in, then you got say like, 5 or 10 gigs, and the price does a couple more of these insane moves like they did today. You don't actually need to sell your IOTA in order to get some utility out of it. You deposit it into one of these bajillion systems, use it as collateral, take out half the amount. So essentially you can withstand a 50% drop in price before it's liquidated. And you can use that to buy other stuff and play around.
It's exciting stuff.
Yeah, and it should be noted that all this is happening with smart contracts. Like there's no middleman, no nothing. No one can tell you that you're not allowed to do this. And then when we're talking about like lending and borrowing, like a big thing that I like not have a problem with, I completely understand it from like a technical standpoint, is that you can't borrow less than, after depositing 100% collateral, because obviously you need to deposit something like 150% collateral. So if it goes down a little bit, once it hits that 100%, it automatically liquidates. But when you have something like IOTA decentralized identity that's pegged to your actual identity, you can develop a credit score system and drive down that high collateralization rate, which would make DeFi just that much more efficient. So if the end goal here is to become as capital efficient as possible, IOTA becomes a really strong contender for something like that.
Because in this case, DID allows you to build what's essentially like your credit history and your reliability and how good a steward of your money you are, right? So DID can relay that. I mean, these services could actually tap into that, evaluate you as a risk assessment, what type of category of borrower you are, right?
Exactly, because it's linked to some type of governmental entity, and if you for 5 years have never defaulted on a loan inside this DeFi system, I as a protocol developer will probably give you the benefit of the doubt and be like, all right, the collateralization ratio can drop as low as 50% because this guy is literally never not repaid.
And that's literally what already happens in the existing financial world already. In our credit, when people are looking at their credit reports and establishing, do I want to give this person a loan? It's all those metrics and those numbers already being done. DID allows us to do this in a way where your information is not identifiable, and it's just a lot easier to basically connect to different processes without actually. I mean, it's immediate, right? With smart contracts, and these decisions are right away. You don't have to go through the whole process that we go through in the existing financial system.
Yep, like, and it's just a very cool concept. Like when it comes to decentralized identity, that allows to increase all of this efficiency here. But right now, basically, if your loan to value ever drops to, like, it starts getting close to 100%, what happens is everything's automatically liquidated, which is actually like a super good thing. It means that this system is anti-fragile and like wicked anti-fragile too. Like the government had to bail out our entire financial system in 2008 because it was insanely fragile. We levered ourselves up to a point where we couldn't pay back anything, so the government's like, "Yep, we'll pay you back. We'll print out money and give you."
Or we couldn't even trace it. We couldn't trace it. Right. Yeah.
That's a huge problem too, is that you weren't able to trace it. What happens with decentralized finance is that you need to provide collateralization ratios that allow you to, not allow you, but make it so if the collateral that you provided starts dropping in value and it drops to a point where the amount that they gave you is equal to that, it automatically liquidates with smart contracts. It's if-then statements. If your collateralization ratio is equal to the amount that we loaned you, then we will liquidate you.
Hey, Andrew.
I think that's very, very interesting. I was just wanted to ask you if you had a research into this as well. I mean, the big challenge you have there is when you have a one-day drop. Because crypto moves so quickly. If you have a huge drop in in the price of a particular cryptocurrency, it can trigger a lot of these liquidations, right?
Yes. So
it can be quite dangerous as well, right?
Yeah, we call those cascading liquidations, and that actually happened in March 2020.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Everything dropped. It was something insane, like what, 80%?
Yeah, it was 60 to 80%. Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
So I had a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is Andrew. This is Chris. I'm glad to get back into the group here, guys. I've been out for a while, but you're opening a lot of concepts to me, and you mentioned the 2008 crisis. And one of the points you were making is that, and again, this is new to myself, but you said you can grab a protocol, stack it on top of others, and create some of these primitives. I think you called them.
Yeah.
Right. So, but you know what? Just as you were saying that, there's something about as you expressed it that reminded me of the 2008 financial crisis, and then there you mentioned it.
Oh yeah.
But so compare and contrast. I mean, let me play devil's advocate. Hey, you're just creating another monster, just like 2000. And of course, I'm not saying.
Yeah, you're
that,
giving the monkey a gun.
Exactly.
This is such a good question.
Yeah. So please compare, contrast. What's different?
Yeah. So when we're talking about the stacking that was done in 2008, we're talking about collateralized debt obligations and mortgage-backed securities, where banks would, give out as many mortgages as possible and transfer the risk from their books by selling them to different financial institutions that would take a bunch of mortgages together, mishmash them into a big portfolio, chop them up, and sell them as securities. And so much had happened in between from the moment the bank underwrote the mortgage to the security being available for like pensions and stuff to actually buy them. Nobody had any clue how much risk was associated with those securities that they were buying, those mortgage-backed securities. That is very different from the composability that I'm talking about here, that is 100% transparent because it's all on the blockchain. You can double check it. And composability also is less about creating a more and more and more levered derivative and more about utilizing protocols that have been ironclad proven over 3 years in order to start your protocol, i.e., you create some type of protocol where people can deposit it into a vault, and that vault is controlled by the smart contracts that will look for the highest yield of the, say, Aave and Compound, like these really pristine protocols, and will send money there in bulk in order to save gas fees, in order to create like the greatest yield. like there's no way to levy yourself when you're using composability, where in the mortgage-backed securities there was tons of ways to do it. And on top of that, you lost transparency every time you went through a different level, where in blockchain and what will future be the Tangle, transparency is there from start to finish. There's actually no way around it. You have to be transparent.
Yeah. Okay. So this is I love the subject, but it's going to take us way. We should have another dedicated session for this. I think for people that want to get into it. I want to kind of bring us back to just kind of getting towards you. We're going to start showing us some stuff. So I want to do that. I'm not trying to table any of this discussion. Maybe we'll do it for the Q&A afterwards. But I'm trying to manage this session just because I know Dave also, who's helping with the recording here. We have some issues we're trying to manage. So I forgive me, but I'm going to see if we can. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, that's new news. But I would like to see if we can maybe you can start taking us down the path of showing us a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And Dave, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's 9:41, so it's way past 7 o'clock. All right. Yeah, and after all of that stuff that I previously talked about, what comes after that? Like some boring stuff like fixed income instruments, futures, options, insurance, like yada yada. And we could talk for weeks about all the financial primitives that are like available. But one thing I would like to highlight is synthetic assets, because this is one of the coolest things in finance I've ever come across. This is something I would definitely would not call it simple, but you take a bucket of collateral, apply a payout function. That payout function is created from an oracle sending a price feed to something on the blockchain, and you can create literally anything. And like that sounds kind of weird, but basically, if you want to buy synthetic crude oil on the blockchain and it tracks the price of crude oil, and whatever you buy will go up and down based on the price of crude oil, you can. If you want to do that with gold, go for it. Tesla stock, sure. If you're a conservative investor and you would like to invest in an S&P 500 index fund, you can create a synthetic asset for that and become exposed to that price action all on the blockchain. And that was kind of like the kicker moment for me, that, it truly begs the question, like aside from regulatory concerns, once DeFi is up and running on Iota, like why would you ever use traditional finance to grow your wealth? Because literally everything in traditional finance is now on the Tangle. There's no need. Yeah. And like after this conversation, it's usually when it clicks with my friends. And so whenever I'm drinking with them, if I get enough beers in me, I will have this conversation with anybody. And it just turns out that DeFi isn't used just for like degenerate gamblers. It's a fully functioning financial system that anybody in the world can access and use. It unlocks so much untapped potential. There are 3 billion underbanked people on this planet. And if you can access their capital and allow them to use it more efficiently, we literally don't know what's going to happen. And I think that's just the coolest thing, like, on the planet. So yeah, that's the end of my rant. I hope that I was able to like kind of show you guys kind of what I know. If I need to clarify or expand upon anything, like just let me know.
I'm loving it. It's great.
Absolutely. Yeah, and throughout this entire exercise, because I've been on this, I completely missed DeFi Summer 2020. So I've been studying the past several months, and it's really challenged my thought of what value truly is. And I think that's pretty neat, considering I come from a very traditional finance background.
So your general view of this is not that Iota is going to or is positioning itself as a sort of supplementary feature set to the existing financial system, do you actually think that it's going to have a disruptive force where it's going to replace those systems as sort of the functioning infrastructure for which all of this processing runs, and it becomes basically the infrastructure and rails by which these systems exist?
Yeah, I think we can talk about the levels in which I believe that's true, but when the rails are this much more efficient, absolutely, it's inevitable. And I think that's the key word, is inevitable. I don't know when it's going to happen, but yeah, it kind of has to.
And every step of the way, every one of these markets that you mentioned, every one of these rails, it's going to be way more performant. And in every step, you're engineering out cost in every single move. It's the cost savings are unimaginable when you start thinking about all the processes right now that are involved now, and time to delivery for all these services, right? Are going to be processes that took a week will be done within moments. So it's the rate of business change is going to be dramatic. It's going to be huge.
Whenever you say that and you're talking about, in particular, things like banking and the regulatory framework that banking needs to function in, I just think no way.
Yeah.
It instantly makes me think there is no way that our banking system, not that necessarily they wouldn't want to, it's just they wouldn't be able to. You know,
it's already underway though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's already being done though. Even at the major banks, they're doing it because they've been testing and kicking the tires and experimenting with this now, and they're implementing. I mean, basically, Andrew can probably speak to that. He's probably seen this already.
Oh, I'd love that. Do you have examples?
Yeah, I personally have not seen that from my company, but I do know that the big banks, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, whatnot, they are all hiring blockchain developers. And I would also like to point out that when we talk about regulatory concerns, we're usually talking about the United States because we're kind of backwards on that. And that's 300 million people. When you talk about DeFi, there's 7 billion other people out there that we're looking to access capital to. And odds are a majority of these countries will understand efficiency. It doesn't matter if the US doesn't join in. DeFi will happen. I don't know if it'll be in 5 years or 20 years, but the efficiencies can't be ignored. It's just not feasible. When you use it, it's like, it becomes so obvious. And what's going to happen is that more and more politicians, more and more bankers will use these rails, and they will literally have the same exact aha moment that I did, where it's like, what the fuck? Why are we using these other things? Like, this exists.
I think what I see reality. To me, I think what I see is that a lot of the other countries, they don't have any solutions, or they don't have proper banking. They will probably take the lead, right? And it will start to coexist with the existing system. And then eventually the existing system will become so inefficient and expensive, and people will start to slowly transition to DeFi as another way to, generate the yield or borrow money. But I don't think really it would be a replacement.
Yeah, and we've already seen this with a protocol called Aave. Aave created a wing of their DeFi protocol called Aave Arc. Aave Arc allows institutions to access the liquidity inside of the DeFi ecosystem. So institutions are there, and they're all about it.
Just as a side note, I did a financial transaction, took it out, and I did an equity type arrangement loan, and it was all on blockchain. Completed, did all of everything was done on chain. We completed it within about 2 days. Basically did everything face-to-face contact. All the notary and everything was done with a smartphone, and it was so efficient. So I'm just saying that a lot of the underpinnings are already underway.
Yeah, I think what's really exciting for me for DeFi, as if you are a developer, you're building a solution in DeFi, typically when you're building a banking solution, you have to go to a country and understand the regulations, and it's a big hurdle, right? With DeFi, you don't have to worry about the regulation. You know the rules will work everywhere in every single every single country. That's to me is the most exciting part of it. That you can you can start a startup, and then and everyone in the world can use it, and you know the rules will always be met because they are programmatically written in the smart contract.
Yep, I'm a giant fan of that. Where basically, there's parts of the world where the next Einstein could be living, and then you give that person, a computer, you give them Starlink, and now they have access to DeFi, and these guys are building new financial primitives because that's exactly what you're going to do. And on top of that, when you're talking about the globalization of finance, it's little things like synthetic assets that allow you to invest in Tesla stock, even if you're not in the United States. There was, I forgot what's her name, Cami, the lady who's in charge of the Defiant, where she grew up in Austria. And if she wanted to invest in Tesla stock, because she really believed in the company and the values, she wasn't able to. But now with synthetic assets on the blockchain, anybody in the world who believes in the vision of Tesla can be a part of the price appreciation of that stock. And I think that's incredibly powerful.
Right. Good point, guys. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Love it.
Yeah, so let me jump into a couple.
Yeah, I can't wait to see this part.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can everyone see my screen? I've been scrolling up and down. I totally forgot everyone was looking at my screen.
I can see your screen moving. Yeah, but you don't have a application up yet.
Sweet. How about now? You see something about?
Yes. Yeah, we're seeing Google. Yeah.
Voice. All right. So I don't have any outstanding loans or deposits on Aave, but I'm showing you right now. Why is this thingamabob popping up over here? It's because certain websites have, I believe, what's called Web3 JavaScript library APIs that connect to, Web3, which would be Ethereum in this case, MetaMask, that make it so you can connect to the blockchain through your HTTP. So now you can see right here, that's my Ethereum address. So I'm looking through here. Let's say, I want to, get some USD and make some interest on it. It looks like right now the deposit API for the Gemini dollar is 8.4%. So if I had some money on here, I would, click that, check it out. It looks like the reason the interest rate is so high is because it looks like $25 million has been deposited for the Gemini dollar, and almost everything is being borrowed right now, which is driving up the interest rate. So if I had $1 million in USD right now, the smart thing to do would be deposit it on here, and you can essentially get a risk-free $80,000 a year for the rest of your life, as long as all these assumptions remained. Like this is.
And I would just mention this. This is a quick thing with Andrew earlier. Could you imagine, like, if you could have this happening in an IRA or 401k, right, or self-managed IRA, that would be huge, right? You park your money and let it collect all this interest. That's like who's paying 8% now? That's amazing.
Exactly. And it's just because supply and demand. Remember when we talked about yield at the beginning of the conversation? It comes from three places. Those forces create this higher yield. Because who the heck isn't going to lever themselves to the moon when you can essentially guarantee that in a couple of years it's going to be higher? Everyone and their mother's going to. And speculators aren't a new thing. They've been around forever. They're in traditional markets, and they're showing up here. And so now we finally get to benefit from it instead of the traditional finance brokerage accounts. JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, those guys are not benefiting from it. We are, because they need our assets. I think that's pretty awesome. So from there, let me tell you about synthetic assets. So what you'll see right here is I actually have, I believe, $5,000 or something like that deposited on synthetics, but you can't see anything here. You can see it's connected to my wallet. What's happening? Well, what I did was transferred it to L2, the optimism rollup. So Ethereum is not just L1 anymore. they created a bunch of different L2s that rely on the security of L1. So you go here, hit up your MetaMask wallet, and you see that right now I'm on the Ethereum mainnet. And that's basically what I need to keep in here in order to pay for gas prices whenever I'm messing around with things. So everyone should be aware of that. Don't play around.
Yeah,
with
it'll suck if you don't have that
got a bunch of ETH from earlier. So I'll jump onto the Optimism mainnet. And as you can see right here, you need almost nothing for gas, which is awesome. Yep, there we go. We have my staked value. So what does that staked value do? You have what's called like a C ratio, which basically means, I don't know, like 1/9 of your staked value can be used as active debt in order to create those synthetic assets that I was talking about, that Tesla stock, that gold, that crude oil, something like that. I'm allowing other people to use my money to create synthetic assets. And in return, I'm making 38% on my money.
So yeah, so really what you're doing is that algorithm is basically saying whatever value you have staked, 1.9, I think you said, was available. So in this case, if you change it to $10,000, your active debt theoretically would be, $1,100, right?
Correct.
And you would be earning 38.19% on that money that was lent. It's on the active debt or on the staked value?
The staked value.
Even better.
Yep, and since this is on L2, everything's a lot cheaper. So in my head, I assume that Iota smart contracts will be slightly cheaper than whatever's on an L2 rollup on Ethereum. It could be a crap ton cheaper, but you want to make sure incentives are aligned. So I just assume it's going to be like that. So what's going to happen is that every 7 days, I need to claim my rewards in order to make sure that my collateralization ratio is in check. So it looks like over the past week, I made this much on trading rewards because L2 is relatively new, so I'm not making a lot of trading rewards. But there's also inflationary rewards. That's that native token yield that I was talking about before. I now get more SNX. So I made, looks like $36 over the past week. You claim rewards. Your MetaMask pops up. Gas looks super cheap. Confirm. Boom. Just like that. Looks like it succeeded. So now I have that in my wallet over here, which should show up in just a moment. So yeah, that's how like synthetics is used. This is what a D app looks like. It's just like a website, except it's connected through, the Web3 JavaScript library API that connects to the blockchain. Nothing's that much different. And so like, how do you actually trade these synthetic assets? Let's say we go over to their exchange called Cointa, start trading. And what's kind of cool that I want to point out, it automatically knew my address and the fact that I was on the Optimism rollup and not the Ethereum mainnet. So I'm automatically on here. It looks like if I wanted to use my $504 of USD that I had minted through the Synthetics protocol, I could buy one of these things. And that's not too much. It's because the L2 rollup just went live a couple weeks ago. So these things are relatively new. If I want to show you exactly what's fully available, let's jump back onto the Ethereum mainnet. And the whole website changes. Holy crap. Looks like we can buy Apple stock. We can buy Great British pounds. We can buy oil. It doesn't matter. We can buy all that stuff. Gold, whatever we want. All without leaving the blockchain. And you just do that through this exchange right here. And then the last thing I'll bring up is the fact that I aped into this protocol. This is a video game called Alluvium that's essentially Pokemon meets Teamfight Tactics, and it's a play to earn game. If anybody is in the altcoins channel, I am constantly telling you the ridiculous things that I'm investing in, and this is one of the things that actually worked out. So if you go like the staking tab, what I did was I bought Illuvium tokens because 100% of the game revenue is sent back to the Illuvium token holders. And I took that and provided liquidity to them through Sushi Swap. So I took an amount of Illuvium tokens, mishmashed them with the same exact amount of Ethereum, and then created liquidity tokens that made it so people who wanted to trade Ethereum for Illuvium or Illuvium or Ethereum on Sushi Swap were able to. It's not peer-to-peer, it's peer-to-contract. And I helped load up that contract with a bunch of liquidity. And in return, what Illuvium's doing is making it so I believe it's 3 million out of their 10 million tokens are just rewarding people whoever do this kind of stuff. Whoever stakes their tokens, you get rewards. So if we check out, it looks like this is my pending rewards right now. And if we check like the vesting, let's see. Looks like my last reward was 43, 365, was about 3 weeks ago. So the rewards are so gosh darn high at 565% that by supplying liquidity, I made $2 grand a week by doing that. And I had put in an initial investment of like $5 grand.
You're kidding me.
Yeah. So this is what happens when you interact with DApps. And like just
That's
to like
crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So everyone join the altcoins channel because this is happening all the time. And if you want to claim your rewards, because what you want to do is compound them. If you look at your core rewards right here, you're getting a 78% APY just for staking the Illuvium token by itself. And what you see right here is that I have, almost 12 Illuvium that's unstaked. It's just pending right now. The reason I don't claim it is because gas fees are ridiculous. It's going to cost me like $100-something just to claim it. So you want to make sure that's high enough in order to
So this is
justify it.
just screaming ISCP and Iota, right?
It
Because
really is. I die a little bit inside every time I use this. So let's say we claim, part of that $6 grand or the entire $6 grand. Do that. Opens up MetaMask. The fees are $120 to do this.
dang.
Confirm. Double confirm another $180 in order to claim the other one. And then you have to rely on the Ethereum blockchain, which will take a moment. So I will jump back into the regular chat. And what's going to happen is that my pending rewards will go to 0. It will add 12 onto here. So I will have 40 ILV, which would be worth, I don't know, what is that, 26 grand. And then I will have 26 grand making 78% APY once this goes through.
That is insane.
Yeah, I modeled this out, and it made it so every 3 weeks that this worked. So I had to do it right here. The gas fees, as you can see, though, are disgusting.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But who's going to turn down $2 grand a week?
Amazing. So you the stream closed, right?
Yep, I just shut it down.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure we didn't have a technical. Cool. Yeah, I'm. That's pretty cool stuff. Anybody have any questions about what they saw there? We just saw.
Well,
one
why
thing
is
we
it
did
so
promise,
high?
we promised yield, right? And we priced,
Yeah.
and we talked about, we saw how you can earn yield. We learned about smart contracts, and you also saw really how you can stake assets and with a DApp. So questions, obviously.
Blown. Really awesome stuff.
I was just curious why, how can it go so high? Is it because they want to really attract a lot of audience? It's a new protocol, or?
Yeah, so it's a relatively new protocol, and the reason that APY is so high on that is because they are dedicating 30% of their entire token supply to
Right.
liquidity providers and people who
Right.
stake their tokens. And what happens is they have this really sweet mechanism, which I thought was super clever, is that if you are to stake for 52 weeks, it doubles your weighted average of the rewards that are given to you. So
They're clever.
Yeah, exactly. So it incentivizes you to lock up your Illuvium tokens. Therefore, you can't sell them, but you do get a higher APY. And honestly, I will ape into anything that I believe in, because if I'm not willing to invest into something for longer than a year, I'm not going to invest into it at all.
But
yeah, I guess every of these DeFi solutions, I mean, they really have a challenge at the beginning, right? Because none of the users will trust their smart contracts because they have not been so vetted. So this is the way to attract the people, right?
Yeah, and that's where finance becomes more of an art than a science. The whole reason I got into this specific one is that the two people that started Illuvium were brothers with the guy who started Synthetics. So it's kind of like you got this, all right, well, they're all brothers. I'm just going to go ahead and assume these other guys are just as smart as the guy who started Synthetics. And sure enough, they are.
So I just, what we wanted to do was for the community, kind of give an overview of the subject matter, kind of paint the opportunity that is there in the world as it exists now and is developing. The yield plays and DeFi and wet your whistle, as they say, but also more importantly, just by what we went through, you can see, without really talking about specific capabilities of ISCP, the Iota smart contracts, that you could just rip and replace and put ISCP in there, and all of a sudden the economics for every one of these dApps improve dramatically, not only for the operators, but for the user base, right? Just erasing those gas fees there and time for finality are the simple, easy ones. Now, there are other cost savings that will be known as we start learning about ISCP, and what we can do is oftentimes smart contracts reach out to a oracle. And those oracles, a smart contract is saying, hey, I need information. I got to reach outside of the chain. So we get out of Ethereum, we go out and we reach to an oracle. The oracle says, cool, I'll give you that information, but I'm going to charge you for that information. So you pay a fee there, and it returns back to the smart contract. Smart contract is then able to move on to its next event. And you may uncover other scenarios where you have to talk along the smart contract process, talk to other oracles, need other additional information, and so costs add up. Just as a brief thing about ISCP, it's possible that you can avoid going out to oracles, because with the Tangle, you are going to be able, in ISCP, you will be able to perhaps run an EVM on or a Ethereum chain on the Tangle and tunnel to ISCP, where maybe that information lives on ISCP, the same information that would have been on an oracle. So there might be a way to think smartly about the way you engineer your smart contracts and tunnel or bridge from one chain to the other and actually avoid fees, or even maybe not avoid them altogether, the oracle fee, but perhaps the information is cheaper on ISCP. So so many different ways that we can deliver on and bring new benefits to people with ISCP.
Yeah. One thing I think is if you talk about oracles, it's an important thing to mention that Iota, because we can deliver data trust, Iota oracles will be a completely different thing. The big thing I see also in Ethereum, they have a huge issue with their oracles because the data is not reliable. Data is not verifiable. If you get a price of a stock, or if you get the price of a crude oil, and your smart contract is relying on this price for executing something, and there is a mess up in the data, there's a mess up in the transition of the data, and you don't have a real reliable source of executing your smart contract, there's a huge problem. And with things like Alvaro,
that's the idea fabric.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. One of the key advantages you get with Tango, right? Because in Tango, because it's for free, you can actually get a lot of parties streaming the data.
But also,
so you can get a lot of different points for the same information. And then the smart contract can use all that.
You can really build this data trust that we see with Alvarium, with what Dell and Intel is doing, that you can have a real score and you can have like a real rated trust for your Oracle, that you don't have to rely on getting the data from 12, 15 different oracles that will all charge. You can have one super trustful and verified data source for your Oracle that is really, really
yeah, the trusted data fabric, right? Yeah, the trusted data fabric that we have going with it, the Alvarium project, right? That business scenario means that we deliver highly trustable data from from devices or any data information source, right? That goes through our Oracle. We basically do a consensus read on that, make sure that we confirm that the data is and we try to verify that it's as real and accurate and is coming from a trusted device. And so we clean that up and say, okay, look, we're going to give the smart contract world the best, cleanest data out there, and it'll likely be less expensive, and your smart contracts are working on trusted, verified data, which is an entirely different thing of running your business with smart contracts that are getting information from random business processes and oracles where you don't know if that data is accurate, right? So your endpoint of your smart contracts, at the end of the day, when your final decision, whatever that smart contract is doing, it may be delivering something based. It's the calculations will just operate on what's presented to them, right? So it's going to give you, bad info in, bad info out, right? So you're going to be delivering a smart contract solution at the end of the day that's based upon bogus information if you don't have a trusted, verified system.
Yeah, but I think even if you have a trusted system, that device will be still owned by one entity, right? So you still will try to source it from multiple parties, not just from one, if it's a decentralized smart contract, right? Which obviously still is great, Tango being for free.
Well, you go to different oracles, right? But what if you have first, can you trust the oracle you're getting the information from? And if you're using multiple oracles, what are the processes that they're using to verify that their information is accurate, right? What if you're getting the same information from multiple oracles and they aren't the same? What do you do about that? So I think we actually have a solution for that. I don't know that the other guys do.
Yeah, but I just wanted to actually ask you: did you, when you operate with synthetics, do you do any research around how they source the pricing?
Chainlink.
You just trust them.
So they use Chainlink.
Okay. So you just
Chainlink, they take a bunch of price feeds, create a quorum, send that out, all transparent. Yeah, it's hard to beat Chainlink, but the big thing is, what would be easy to beat them is, it's expensive to call them every single time. The whole reason they had to move over to L2 is because they could not afford to call Chainlink as often as they needed to.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say actually. When you were switching between those different wallets, it's also amazing about Iota. You don't really, I can imagine a lot of these providers are switching to L2 because of fees, right? And
that's what I did.
And in Iota, you wouldn't actually have to do that. They wouldn't have to switch to L2.
Yeah, right now, imagine
on the L1, which is amazing. Right?
It's amazing if you think about it. Smart contracts can execute whatever they want, and they can do it really efficiently. But every time they need to go find information, there's a cha-ching, right? That costs you money, right? And so over time, as more complicated processes and longer smart contract processes get, and the more things that are involved, it just becomes cost prohibitive. They can't even do it on L1. It's just amazing, right? So it'll functionally work, but the cost is just gets more and more, gets worse and worse and worse. The more detailed these things when they require information from outside. So we have great advantage here.
Yeah, for sure. I was just playing around with a video game on there, and I spent $300 in transactions fees. It's the struggle is real, guys. Like ISCP
is real. It's true.
What did you tell your wife?
Don't tell her. She's asleep right now.
Yeah. Well, what I would tell her is I just made $2,000 on $5,000. So yeah.
Yeah. See, exactly.
And that's you. Can you imagine what your kids would do?
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I should just wait till I tell her how many Merlot NFTs I buy.
That's an amazing call, Andrew. I really enjoyed listening to that. I mean, I was pretty excited for ISCP, like extremely, and then listening to this is just taking it to another level, really.
Alright, so that's really great to hear. And I guess just to top off like the hype train, if we're gonna do anything, I would say similar to Avalanche, what they did was you literally copy the code base, fork it over to your EVM, and you literally have a protocol working within a month. And you can take, assuming you have enough developers, an entire ecosystem and fork it over to your EVM within a month. Like, it does not take much. So I would highly recommend, and honestly, I would pay people like 50 grand a protocol to actually fork over this code in order to have an Aave, in order to have a maker, in order to have a Uniswap, in order to have a perpetuals protocol, like just on and on and on. Like, there's no reason from like a coding standpoint. I know it's slightly difficult, but if an EVM is an EVM, there's no reason you can't have a full-fledged DeFi ecosystem 1 month after ISCP launches.
The thought has crossed my mind.
I'm still of the opinion that they're going to launch ISCP with a network because of that reason. That they're going to come at this with partners who are already developing and kind of working through the protocol as we speak. We'll see whether that fleshes out. But again,
no, I'm actually right. I think I'm quite confident that what you said is true. I'm high level confidence that what you said is true. It's the only way to go about it, really.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and
Closer
that's
to
where,
when
kind of. Oh, go ahead.
Closer to when ISCP is coming onto the mainnet, I'm going to be watching your posts and altcoins quite closely, Andrew. After seeing today.
Yeah, I'm a man of integrity, and if we can get Iota DeFi Academy off the floor the same exact time ISCP is happening, I will never invest in something before I post it on Iota DeFi Academy, just to make sure everyone gets like an equal opportunity there.
Oh, that's a great idea. That's a great. I mean, that process is used by people of high integrity and with other services. So that's excellent to hear. I'm quite sure. Philo and I had talked about this before, and then what you talked about it. I mean, this is exactly what the IF wants to get done. So I'm sure you'll be hearing people from IF reaching out to you now to do this stuff. So it's exciting. It's what the community needs. And this, to me, will get the community fired up. I don't know what everyone else on this call is, but I think he's totally delivered on this call. I really appreciate he's done a great job on this call.
Yeah,
so.
no question.
Wonderful.
Yeah, no question.
This was amazing. Yes.
Yeah, this is a great call.
Well, I'm glad we came through with something that was of value to you guys, so you guys can go out and preach that we're starting to do some good stuff out in the Americas and get the word out. See if we can maybe give a run to the guys in Germany here on with their user group. But we're starting. We're a lot smaller, but we're growing fast. So we'll continue to try to bring great content.
If you continue to grow like this, I mean, how many people are there today? Like 40?
Yeah, it's doing pretty good, right?
Cool.
We're doing
good.
Yeah,
I think we had on average 30 people. Yeah.
So, in efforts to actually bring you this great content, I need ideas, guys. So I'm the guy who's I've kind of thought of what should be happening. The last meeting was awesome. Dave gave a really good presentation on the new mechanism, right, that we're going to be using for consensus. And unfortunately, we didn't record that. We may even have him do it again because it was so good. Because I would love to have that up on our newly created America's YouTube site. So maybe we'll get to do that. But maybe like in the next, you guys can send me some thoughts on what you'd like to see. Because I want to do like this type of quality thing to bring on. We'll ask maybe do something on DID. Maybe I can get the folks from IF to come in and present on that and talk about that. But other ideas, or maybe we dive into a specific category in DeFi, right? So we just kind of wet your whistle with what can be possible. Now we can actually maybe dive into each sector, because really, right, if he just started touching on the surface of the different areas of business that DeFi touches, right? There's insurance, there's all kinds of different things, and each one could have a presentation unto itself. So maybe I'll work with Andrew on that. But anybody have any ideas right now?
Yeah, maybe even streams. I mean, the ONG is about to release the next standardization, so Let's the Let's protocol, formerly Streams, is about to come up in conversation. So I think that's kind of fallen off the radar for a lot of people, and it's an important product set. So I think that might be a really good conversation for us to have.
Yeah, I second that.
Yeah, I think everybody wants streams. I think it was a resource issue, and then maybe we realized that we needed to seize the opportunity in smart contracts. A little, marketplace dynamics probably shifted resources for a bit, but I agree wholeheartedly on that. So.
Might be difficult to find somebody that can really present the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, Philo would know. Yeah.
I mean, there's sure from IF we have some people. I can ask if somebody, maybe Daryl or somebody is able to do something for the community. That would be actually awesome. Let me check on that. I'll keep that in mind. Maybe we can really get somebody from IF, because they have some nice internal presentations. Don't know how much of this is allowed to go. They would have to delete a few sheets or something. And also maybe I will, because I'm gonna give kind of a DAO introduction next week in the IF. Maybe I can, in the next meeting, I can present a kind of a general overview about the DAO landscape in ETH, what kind of DAO is around, what tools are there, what crazy stuff people do when they use DAOs. This might be a nice thing. It's 2 weeks, so I can maybe present something then.
Yeah, cool. So, I did put an agenda together, but really it was all about smart contracts today and what we saw today. But I did have a quick update that I thought I'd ask Philo on just the state of the vote, right? Every week, every time we have a meeting, we just kind of like let you know the progress of where we are. So maybe you can just say a couple words about that, Philo, so we can keep the community up to date.
Yes. It's progress is made. It's kind of stuff a bit happening in the background, because in the moment it's the technicals are all kind of laid out, so it's pretty clear how the system should work. In the moment we are looking for people that actually do the work. So there's still need of some developers that would be able to help on. You saw we did this, the community came up with the iotatreasury.org website thing, because this is kind of, there's a single point of information needed for everybody in IOTA, because you can't have everyone getting to jump into the Discord calls or read through all the channels in Discord. So there will be a need of an information website that explains the first vote, and also will be used to make the first vote possible. So maybe through deep links or to a kind of a button that connects to Firefly and lets you vote in your Firefly, but starting on the website. And there's some community designers came together and started with a first website design. So just like out of the hips, what they thought would be nice. So maybe if anyone want to have a look onto it, we have a channel, the Treasury website channel in Discord. Have a look on what they designed. I think it looks cool. If anybody has ideas what to add there.
And
did he disappear again?
Yeah, the man of Bali.
The guy needs Starlink.
Yeah, well, he's actually looked into it. Apparently, it's just not available yet.
That's a bummer.
I was telling him though, just why whatever he said was going to be great, I'm sure. But the new iPhone 5, the new iPhone is supposed to have satellite. They just they're just coming out in today in the news, so that'd be kind of cool. Well, hey Philo, if you're talking, we can't hear you, buddy. So, anybody else got any words of wisdom or things you guys want to share?
Yeah,
for
the ideas in the channel, I think it would be helpful.
You're back. We lost you.
Back.
Philo, we have lost you and off and on. So.
Yeah, if I was just gonna say, I don't want to put you, any pressure, but Terry, you're a pretty prominent figure in this space. Do you have any updates on that Cup Crush program?
Is he on here?
Yeah, he's on here. I don't know if he's got access to a mic or anything.
Hello.
Oh, now you're back, Philo. You had.
My typical thing.
Yeah. So, but you're still cutting out badly, my friend. So, yeah, can't really not work. Walkie-talkie. So.
I think Terry's unmuted. I don't know if he's trying to talk.
Welcome to Push to Talk. Right, I think we're gonna try to fix that. So.
Oh man, the Cup Crush program is huge in my book.
Yeah, that's massive.
It is
an
a
awesome
cool
look
program.
at that little teaser that they showed the other day. Seriously huge.
It can benefit so many things, and the economics of it are interesting. So, but
just the sheer amount of, waste that would be recycled is just incredible.
Oh, you're back, Dave. I don't know, guys. It sounds like we're kind of hitting a tough spot right now as far as for Philo going. We've had about an hour and a half of content. What do you guys think? You guys want to call it?
I'd say so. I've never stayed up this late before.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think we can wrap.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just call this a wrap. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you very much for Tangle, Tangle Accountant, otherwise aka Andrew.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and Dave. Can't thank you enough, Dave, for helping me record this. And what will happen, guys, is we'll look at the recording and then we'll upload it to our new YouTube site for this user group, and I'll post that in the Americas channel so that you guys can all have that when we got it all baked and ready to go. All right. Okay, guys. Hey, thanks for showing up, and we'll see you on Discord.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys. See y'all later.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Take care.
Bye.